I'm Sukruta. I'm the organizer of Girl Geek dinners. So welcome. So excited that HP is doing this. It's about time. Yeah, this is dinner number 35. I'm going to hope that you'll all tweet about this, #HPGGD, and tweet at BayAreaGGD. Also, feel free to blog about the dinner. It's going to be awesome. So email it to us, tweet it at us, and we'll post it on our website. March 8th was International Women's Day, and I took that opportunity to think about how I'd been working on my career, and Sheryl Sandberg's book was out, Lean In, and I felt pressure to think about whether or not I was, in fact, leaning in. So I've been reading her book because that's the cool new thing to do, right? And it helped me reflect on whether or not I had been doing things right. And I'm ashamed to say that I did not negotiate for my first job offer. I did not negotiate for any raises that I got. I was so proud that I had not negotiated, and I got what was deserved of me without asking. I was so proud that I had gotten promotions without asking for it. I mean, if you're like me, feel ashamed. Don't feel proud about it. So I'm hoping that at the end of this dinner, we're going to have some amazing HP Girl Geeks share their experiences in the format of a panel. So I'm hoping that you will, take the opportunity to think about whether or not you're contributing enough to your career, and are you pushing yourself to the limit that you can push yourself. So welcome, everyone, and I hope you have a great experience at this Girl Geek dinner. I'm going to pass on the mic. Thank you.
All right, then it's time to get started. So let me introduce you to our head of HR here at HP Software and tonight's moderator of this panel, Joe Dennis.
Thank you. I think I'm mic'd up, so you've already come on a mic. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm not you're not a girl, you don't belong here was the first comment. I'm not sure what the rules are with that, but we've got a few guys at the back of the room too, so. Guys are welcome, ex-guy, you can stay. The boys, the back of the room. Wow, okay, good. So welcome, my goodness, this event has been for us months in the planning, and we are so excited that this is our first Girl Geek dinner in such an amazing month for women in work and in leadership positions, whether it's Sheryl Sandberg's book, whether it's International Women's Day, or whether it's what John Thompson was saying today about his beliefs and desire to walk the talk a bit more at Cisco. So a fantastic month for us to have picked to host, and we hope and certainly don't plan for this to be our last. So we're incredibly proud about our company. We have an immensely rich innovation history spanning 75 years, and our technology portfolio spans such a broad range from servers, storage, network, services, and software. And more importantly, we have 330,000 fantastic people working in HP today. And we truly believe in the power of people, and we truly believe in the power of a diverse workforce. So that's why this event, we may have taken a bit long to get here, but that's why this event is so important to us. And welcome to HP Software's headquarters. So I would love to start introducing our panel to you. And I'm going to take a bit of time. I was debating over the last couple of days, okay, do I try and memorize these bios? Do I try and kind of cut them down and be snippy and funny? And I was like, no, the bios and the people, more importantly, that I'm going to introduce to you are some of the most inspirational women that we have in technology, let alone HP. So I'm going to take my time. And I'm going to start with Anne Livermore. So Anne, will you join me on the stage? Please take a seat. Yeah, you can take the first seat, Anne. I'm going to keep you close. So let me start with Anne's biography. Anne is currently a HP board director since 2011 and a former executive vice president of HP. After 29 years in HP operational and leadership positions, we were so pleased to see Anne stay with us and join our board of directors. In her last role in HP, Anne was the Executive Vice President of our enterprise business, a business of $57 million in revenue. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty big business. And that business spanned a number of technologies and spanned a number of countries, nearly 170. Anne joined HP in 1982, a founding girl geek of HP's history, and has had management positions across marketing, sales, R&D, and business management. So we are very proud and very pleased for you to be with us today, and we look forward to hearing more from you in our panel. Thank you, Anne. Okay. So my next panelist and my boss, Tracy Keogh. Tracy, please join us. Tracy is our Executive Vice President, so again, pretty cool female leading human resources across HP's worldwide operations. 330,000 employees that Tracy makes sure we put first, and has been an inspirational leader since joining HP just a couple of years ago, making sure that we truly believe in the power of people. Prior to joining HP, Tracy was the Senior Vice President of HR at Hewlett Associates, a leading and one of the world's largest providers in human resources consultancy services. And before that, held many positions, including the top HR job at Bloomberg. In addition to her HR background, Tracy's held a wide range of leadership roles, has an MA in Business Administration from Harvard School of Business, pretty impressive, and a bachelor's degree in psychology from Smith College. Those of you who might want to Google Tracy might find an analyst article last week talking about how Tracy and HR are actually behind the transformation of HP. So to have an analyst talk about HR and Tracy like that, it's pretty amazing. A little bit of recognition for my boss. It's never gonna do me bad things. I know a little bit about Tracy, so I'll share a little secret because she likes to share my secrets. Tracy sang at Carnegie Hall and is a mean bowler. So pick your favorite hobby and Tracy will be keen to share that with you. So welcome, Tracy. Thank you for being here. Okay, our next panelist, Bethany Meyer. Bethany, please join us. Bethany is our Senior Vice President and General Manager of HP's networking business. This business, it says in the bio, has grown 12 consecutive quarters, but I actually know that it's grown 14 consecutive quarters. Well, we'll go with 14. It's gonna be 14. It's gonna be 14. And it delivers $2.5 billion in annual revenue for our company, and some of the most inspirational technology that I think the industry has in networking. Bethany brings more than 25 years experience in leading product management, marketing, communications, operations, engineering, from startups to Fortune 500 companies. And there's a theme here, both Anne, Tracy, Bethany, multiple experiences in different types of companies, different types of functions. And that's a theme that I think we're gonna continue. Bethany, before HP, joined us from Blue Coat Technology, where she was Senior Vice President of Worldwide Marketing and Corporate Development, and a number of positions before that. Bethany holds a Bachelor of Science from the Santa Clara University and an MBA from the California State University. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the panel, was recently recognized as one of the top women of influence in Silicon Valley, and a Female Executive of the Year in 2012. Thank you for being with us. Okay, our next panelist is April Slayden Mitchell, and April's bringing her future geek with us.
We don't know
with her.
Girl or geek boy, though.
Yeah, congratulations. April is our principal scientist for HP Labs Analytics Research Department. So an amazing technologist. And joined us as an experienced designer with expertise in domain global enterprise collaboration solutions, including mobile experiences and social video communication. I can hardly get these words out. A 10-year veteran of HP Labs, April has conducted research resulting in a variety of leading-edge technologies, immersive telepresence robots, and DJ Hammer. April's current focus is HP Compass, an enterprise social collaboration tool that helps employees figure out how to get their stuff done in their current company or new company. So April, thank you for being here and welcome. Okay. our final panelist, and then we have a special gift and guest brought to us through the power of technology, is Elizabeth Joyce. Elizabeth, come on up. Welcome to our panel. Elizabeth is from our very own, we're very proud of Elizabeth, our HP Software Business Unit. And Elizabeth's background includes a PhD in information security and broad P&L experience running operations and services and consultancy organizations. Most recently joined us through our autonomy acquisition and was very recently named our CISO, our Chief Security Officer for HP Software, and the leader of our delivery organization for our infrastructure services. And Elizabeth, you'll find out, has a little bit of an international experience and hails from a similar geography to the one that I do. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, so before we start our panel, and I have some challenging questions for them, but I'm hoping that you've got more challenging questions for them than I do. So please don't be shy. They're very, very nice people, and they would love your questions probably more than they'll love my questions. But we wanted somebody to join us here, and she truly wanted to be here, but she couldn't. And she is a true believer in the power of people for HP, and she is our HP President and Chief Executive Officer, Meg Whitman.
Hello, I'm Meg Whitman, President and CEO of HP. And I didn't want to miss this opportunity to send a message to all of you attending HP's Geek Girl Dinner. It's a pleasure to have you with us in our new home for our software business. I was so pleased to hear we were hosting a Geek Girl event. Forums like this are important for so many reasons, but namely for innovation, to foster community, and to empower women to be at the forefront of the technology industry. As a woman, the one thing I always get asked is, what's the secret? What is the secret to a career, to raising and balancing family, to increasing our tech credentials and advancing in an incredibly competitive industry? And I'm sure all of you get asked the same thing. Let me be clear, I don't have the secret. The fact is there's education, preparation, hard work, and talent. And at some point, there's also luck. Sometimes you zig instead of zag. But there are some things I've learned about leadership over my career that I'd like to share. First, effective leaders are true to themselves. You have to know who you are and what you stand for. Second, it's all about the team. You need the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time. And from a personal perspective, the idea of people being good has been seminal to my growth as a leader. Bureaucracy, red tape, complexity, onerous processes, they all stem from a lack of trust. I also believe in the power of many. You should listen to your customers, your users, your teams, the people on the front lines. Your job isn't to have every good idea, it's to recognize the best ideas and bring them to life. Now let me say a couple of things about leading as a woman. I don't necessarily believe there's a distinction of women leaders or a women's style of leadership, but I do recognize women share some different experiences. And at an event like this, it's probably worth discussing. So for me, yes, being a mother has also been a seminal experience in my life and my leadership style. I will never have another job as important or as terrifying as bringing a new life into this world. The experience of raising children is the greatest joy and the most humbling. It gives me perspective because nothing I face in business is as intimidating or as important. So you know what? The ceiling is where you put it. Don't be afraid to take chances. Dare to be great. Thank you. Welcome to HP, and I hope you enjoy the evening.
Such an inspirational lady. It's so good to have her join us through the power of technology. And by the way, through the power of technology, we are beaming this event, as is the tradition with our Girl Geek dinners around the US. I don't know how many people are going to be watching us online, but welcome if you are watching us over your PCs. We have a few PCs that you might want to consider purchasing from HP. And actually, we may like to share some of those PCs with you in the room. You never know. So stick around. And by the way, we were so pleased to see see the immense reaction to this event. We had so many people sign up so fast. Within 3 minutes, we sold out of our allocated seats, which goes a testament to this event and the power of this community. And we have 500 people wishing they were here. So thank you for being quick off the button and being with us tonight. So without further ado, our panel. Anne, I would love to hear what your future vision is for the tech industry. What are the trends that you are seeing? What do you think is out there? What should we be preparing for?
Well, we're going to start with a nice, short, easy one.
That's a tough one.
So,
PhD question.
No, I think this is really key. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk through both what is happening today and then how that's going to lay the foundations for the things that are going to be most important going forward. So I think almost everyone would rattle off the list: big data, cloud, mobile, social networks, or some combination of those four. And I think what is so different today is that we've got all four of them happening at once. And the tech industry has not seen four such big trends happen all at one time. And that's causing a lot of the disruption. Now, I think if you look at those four, there are also some very important things happening inside each one and some great opportunities for technology leadership for many years to come. But then I think those four things are going to lead to even more. So let's take a minute and talk about them. Big data. Data is going to become, for every corporation, every government, every institution, the source of their competitive advantage. And it's not going to be who has the data, it's going to be who uses it the best. So start thinking about data as a natural resource, and its importance being as big as natural resources that we've seen in other eras, things that happened as a result of electricity, or things that perhaps happened as a result of oil. Those kinds of things and resources. So take data as a resource. The cloud. Think of the cloud as enabling the very efficient and needing to be secure delivery of services, whether it's yourself personally or corporation. Really, really huge transition. Then think of mobile. And I think the real value behind mobile is personalized, made for you wherever you are. And many times that's in the form of the delivery of some service. And then you add on top of that social networks. And I believe that as we look forward, social networks are going to be the next generation of production lines, because you have access to whoever you need access to 24 hours a day. So think of those changes and new production lines, new resources, all those things that are happening. And when you put them all together, I think what's going to happen is each of those are going to continue for many years to evolve as their own instances or their own trends. But when you put them all together, I think what's going to become most important looking forward is going to be two things that they're going to enable. One is going to be systems that learn and computers that learn. And if you think of the big trends, computers started off just adding stuff up. And the next big trends where you could program computers to do things. And the next big one's going to be computers that learn. And don't think just about the computers, but in this Internet of Things, think about all the things that are tied together and the fact that they can learn and think just like we as humans do. So that's a really big deal. And then the second one is going to be a trend around the immediate realization and delivery of services. So think of real-time activation of services. And many of us as consumers already feel like we have this with a lot of things being delivered to our phone. But imagine for a government or a business immediately being able to turn on a service. whether it's a service for their customers, a service for their employees, a service for their partners. And we still today take forever to get things deployed inside corporations. You know, it speeds up with cloud service, but we still take forever. So think about these systems that learn, and then think about being able to have real-time activation of services and just how powerful both those things can be. And underlining those things, I mean, my HP colleagues can talk to this. HP's got all sorts of things that enable us to be able to do those two things in the future better than any other company can.
I would agree. That's great. Thank you, Anne. Now, you talked a lot about the trends in technology. Are there any thoughts that you would give our guests here tonight about the trends, what those trends mean for leaders in the future, and specifically our female leaders?
Well, I think, I think very much like Meg does. So, I would ditto every comment, that she made about leadership in those roles. But let me tell you a few things that I use to look for when I am looking for leadership skills in terms of people to hire. And I think these comments that I make are going to be forward-going things. I look for people with courage. And that's because when you're a leader, it can be lonely at times and you have to make a lot of hard decisions. So I think courage is really, really important. Then I think it's important that you're willing to initiate, to act, and that your actions have an impact. And when you look at the greatest leaders in the world, that's always true. They're willing to start something, they're willing to take action, and they have a big, big impact. I think the most important leaders are going to be people who can influence, and that means getting people who don't report to you or don't necessarily work with you to do things. And influence across the tech industry is a really big deal. Influence inside a lab is a really big deal. And I think the skill to inspire is important because you have to have people eager to follow you. And Meg made a huge, huge point that in the end, the people who can attract and keep the best talent end up winning. So the great leaders are also going to have that. And I think those things are characteristics that as you look forward are going to remain really true and maybe even truer as we go forward.
So before I come to you, Tracy, just one final question, Anne, and kind of go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you could go back using the experience and the knowledge that you have today, what would you tell yourself? What would you wish you could tell yourself was going to be important right at the beginning of your career?
Well, I had someone tell me when I was in my mid-30s something that I wish I had been told in my mid-20s. And that was that I cared about too many things. And that some things matter a lot more than others. And so one of the things you have to decide is what's important to you and to your family, and what's important to you in terms of being successful in your career. And I can remember, this boss sitting at me, and he kind of pounds his fists on the table and goes, "Ann, you just care about too many things." And this was the same boss who had said to me, "It's not my problem if you can't get your job done in a normal work week." And it all came down to where you invest your energy and your time. And, it may be, do you leave the dishes in the kitchen? Can you convince someone else to do the laundry? I heard someone joke one time that the most important thing that men could do to help women would be the laundry.
I agree. I agree.
So it's that kind of thing. What thing do you care about and what things should you don't, both at work and at home? And to be really strict with yourself, about not worrying about or spending your time on things that don't matter.
Making those choices. That's great. Thank you. So Tracy,
yes.
it's like, oh, it's like a game show.
I know. I'm up next, I know.
So you have a career that spans both business roles and now HR. Maybe start by sharing what that experience has meant for you, particularly in the role you currently have heading up HR for HP.
Yeah, well, I have had, I always call it my checkered past because I've worked in a lot of different roles. And you know, I had a great opportunity. I actually started out as a hospital administrator and then went back to business school and came out of business school and did consulting. And so consulted in a lot of industries and did strategy and operational consulting. And then I sort of fell into HR when the company I was working for needed someone to improve one of its processes, very much from a business perspective, and then moved on in other roles to do, I ran sales and marketing at one company and operations. So, you know, for me, it was just a great building of experiences. I've also worked in a variety of industries and technology, services, and all those things really led up to my career now. So, you know, one of the things is I was listening to Ann, and, you know, no one could top, that was like the perfect list of what to hire for leaders. You know, this issue around lifelong learning, I think, is the one other thing I would add, because we're all in environments, as Ann was talking about what technology is going to do. That means things are going to look so different. And so, you know, one of the things I look for is people who want to continue to evolve and grow, because all those experiences you have really enhance your perspective on your current job. As I worked through all these different roles, I realized I really cared a lot about people and how HR was, you know, an incredibly strategic element of every company. I always say work's the easy thing. It's the people that are hard, right? I mean, in any company. And it's usually almost the least thought about aspect of any corporation. And so for me to go into HR, I'd built up a fund of knowledge in it, and I felt like I could have the biggest impact. I figured out for me how I could have the biggest impact in terms of my role. Certainly did not grow up wanting to be in HR, and ended up being a fantastic career for me. I have to say I'm one of those people who I can't wait to get to work every day. I work, you know, my team knows I'm like 7 days a week. That's bad. Don't do that. But, you know, because it's just really exciting. And one of the things, I had an incredible week this week. There was a lot of problems, we solved them, but I just realized I learned all week. I keep learning all the time. And so I think we all need that. As, you know, the world's going to look very different in a few years. To Ann's, you know, it's going to be much flatter, it's going to be more networked, and I actually think it's going to be your knowledge base that helps you go through. So, you know, I think taking every experience, and sometimes they look lateral, they look, you know, like maybe it's not the right thing to do. I would say, and I see this a lot with women, take those opportunities. When someone offers you a job that seems, I wish, if someone had said to me, I wish I had more confidence, growing up in my career. I was one of those, I have to do it perfectly before I take the job. And I literally had CEOs say, you've got the job. I'm like, well, I really don't know how to do this. Do it anyway. And I figured it out every time. And so, just take those opportunities, push yourself, because what happens is you get to a point where you're using, it's all your toolkit and you use it all the time. And that certainly has proven right for me. So
that's great. Thank you. So like the Girl Geek Dinner, there are a lot of initiatives and networks and groups that people can join to kind of expand their horizons and meet new people. And this one specifically around female leaders at work. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on why that diversity, that richness is important for HP?
Yeah, well, I think, everybody, diversity in general brings an incredibly richer perspective to whatever you're doing. If you're, solving problems for customers, you can't be unifocal in how you look at it. Our customers are diverse. We have to be diverse, to be able to come up with the right solution. I have the privilege of being on the board of the Anita Borg Institute, which is an organization that's really focused on women in computing. And Nora Denzel, who was the former HP person, she gave the keynote and she had a list of, men invented the gun and women invented the bulletproof jacket. Men invented the typewriter and women invented liquid paper. I mean, as you go through, she had a wonderful list but it takes all of us together to go through and figure out, if you just have one perspective, perspective, you're not actually going to be solving a problem in the fullest way. And so, it's not just women, but different ethnicities, people with disabilities. When you bring together that kind of power to solve a problem, and I have the, unbelievably wonderful time of overseeing all the 330,000 people we have at HP, and I see that every day, the perspectives that people bring and the impact that it can have. I think that's why it's important to have that diversity and to be able to solve things in the richest possible way.
That's great, thank you. And thank you for being here. Last night, Tracy was decorating cupcakes for charity, so it's been a busy week.
People won me in an auction, so that's why I was doing that. That's right.
So Bethany, I'll come to you next, and maybe to come back to Anne's opening comments about maybe start with the trends that you see in your business in HP networking, and also then we'll come to your transition into that role, because I think that would be really interesting for the team to hear.
Sure. So in terms of trends that are changing, not just in networking, but in the overall infrastructure in an enterprise, I would say there are two very big changes that go primarily to the infrastructure itself. So one is convergence. And it's interesting because having been, now 30 years in my career, I've worked on a lot of different technologies. And in many cases, they were what were called pure play technologies, meaning that they did a very specific function. But in those pure play worlds, I often got asked, well, if you could just put this thing with that thing, that would really help me as a customer. And frankly, what convergence is all about is essentially being able to integrate several different technologies, very key technologies in the IT world together to provide a better solution for the customer. In the case of infrastructure, we look at servers, storage, networking, management, and software as being converged. And that means thinking about IT and the services that IT brings is very, very different than we might have seen in the past. In the past, as I said, everything was very siloed. And frankly, most of the organizations, the IT organizations in companies spent, and there's a statistic, 70% of their time maintaining what they had. 70% of their time. So that meant that left only 30% of their time to basically do anything new for the business that the business required. And as a result, frankly, oftentimes IT got left behind. And it was almost to the point where it was considered irrelevant to the business. And so what's changing now is the concept of converging these technologies together so that IT providers and the services they want to create are going to be much more focused on innovation versus on maintaining, because we at HP and other companies like us will provide the technology in such a way that they won't have to spend time maintaining all these separate technologies, and the technology itself will automate what they do, will be able to orchestrate itself and essentially allow them to do a different kind of job. So that's one key aspect that we see moving along in the industry. And then the second, from a networking perspective specifically, around something that's called software-defined networking, which essentially networking has been, and I've been in the networking industry for a very, very long time, and networking has been very traditionally complex. The network's been very rigid. In fact, we used to say that if a switch had dust on it, that was good. That meant you never touched it, and that was better. And it was very fragile thing. I mean, I actually had one guy at a show me on his phone a switch with, it looked like someone had thrown up cables out of his switch, right? It was just unbelievable. He goes, I have no idea what will happen if I unplug one of these things. And it was a very large service provider, so be afraid. Wow. Anyways, so that is a problem. And to that effect, what companies like HP and HP specifically are doing we're creating a different paradigm in networking where we take away that complexity, the fragility, and the rigidity around basically being able to manage it in a much more automated way, a much more virtualized way. And it's a very big change in networking. In fact, it's a sea change in networking. And back to that point about convergence, allowing, say, a server administrator to configure the network the way they need to put an application over it. That's the concept here, right? Allowing other folks to participate in the network without having to spend hours and months and years changing it.
That's great.
So those are the two big trends.
That's great, thank you. So I mentioned 14 because I'm confident there will be 14 consecutive quarters of growth. But so can you share your kind of transition into your current role and your secret to leading such a successful business for HP?
So thank you for saying that, and my fingers crossed.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to jinx you.
And that was not a forward-looking statement.
No,
yes, that too.
Anywho, so I had a very similar, actually, to Tracy and to Ann. I have had a very broad background in my time and my career. I started out in manufacturing, actually. And moved into engineering, and then followed that into product management, and then owning product management and marketing, and then also sales and corporate development. And now I run a business, which, by the way, combines all of those things, which is quite interesting. But what was really cool for me, so I was running marketing for my boss, who's Dave Donatelli, a man, and and he basically, one day I had gone on vacation, and I'm dragging my luggage through Belize. You know, if you've ever been to Belize, it's a very tiny airport in Belize. I'm lugging it across the tarmac, and I get a call from Dave. And Dave says, "Hi." I'm like, "Hi, why are you talking to me?" He goes, "I have a really great idea for you." "Okay, what's that?" "I think you should run the networking business unit." And I looked at my husband, I said, to say. He said, "You say yes." And so I said, "Yes, sure, I'll do that." And I think that I asked Dave later why he would choose me over other candidates. And he actually had gone out on a very large search throughout the world, believe it or not, looking for a choice, and chose me, which I was very flattered about. But he basically said a couple of things. He said, one, oftentimes people don't look at you as a whole. They look at what you're doing right now, and they pigeonhole you. And that's actually bad, because frankly, we all have wonderful experiences that we bring to the table that, aren't necessarily apparent in the current role we're in. And so what he had done was he had actually spent time talking with different folks in the organization, and also went back and reviewed my resume and went, wait a minute, this is an individual who knows this industry very well, who's run engineering organizations and manufacturing, and I think this is a great choice for this role. So I have to say, he was a very open person, which I really appreciate. And he also looked for someone who had some level of experience in these things, but yet it wasn't apparent to everyone else. So it was a really great thing. I was very pleased.
Great story of, imagine you wheeling your luggage through the airport, getting the, hey, do you want this great job?
This great job.
And last year you were kind of the winner of the Stevie Gold Award. Could you tell us a little bit about that award and what that meant for you?
Sure. So personally, I was quite surprised. So the Stevie is an award that's given out on a yearly basis, and it's actually, which I didn't know, thousands of companies submit candidates for this nomination, and it gets down to 100, and then 10, and then 8, and then 1 in a couple of different categories. And so, so I had been put in as I was nominated, and I honestly thought, and the people that were, the candidates that were there with me were very impressive, actually. I looked at the list and I went, there is no way I'm going to get this award, so I'm not going to the award ceremony. And yes, and so on a Saturday the next morning after the award ceremony, I decided, well, hey, I'm going to go online and look at who won, thinking that it was somebody else. And I'm looking through the list and I'm like, okay, where's maybe, I thought I looked down at the bottom of the listing, where am I? Maybe they forgot me altogether. And then I began to look up the list and I was like, oh my gosh, it's me. And so that was very surprising. But it meant one, from a personal perspective, it was very exciting. But from a professional perspective, it was just great to be all the hard work and effort over the course of my career getting a recognition of some kind that was unbiased was very exciting.
Well,
and so
congratulations.
Well, also,
Thank
can I say,
you.
first of all, go to award ceremonies
Yeah.
if you're nominated and you deserve it. 'Cause
Right.
Bethany
Do
is
not screw that
unbelievably
up.
super talented, as you can tell. So
Yes, do not sit in your underwear
yes,
looking at
go
your
to the award ceremony. You may win.
and then calling your mom and go, oh my God, oh my God.
That's a good tweet tip, I think.
Yes, good tweet tip. Go to your award ceremonies.
Thank you, Bethany.
You're welcome.
April, I'm going to come to you next. First of all, congratulations again.
Yes. Yeah.
When's the
My
due
friends
date?
asked if I had told everybody. I'm like, no, but they will know soon enough.
Well, we're beaming your
Yes.
fabulous
I'm
news
due
around
the
the
end
world.
of June, and this is number 2. My daughter is 4 and very excited.
That's
so
nice.
I bet. Great.
don't know if it's a geek girl or a geek boy, though. We will see.
Well, we can't wait to hear.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about innovation at HP? Because I think there's probably some myths out there around whether HP does innovate or not. And I mentioned our 75 years of rich history, and you're right in the center of HP Labs and our
Absolutely.
innovation hub. So I think it would be great to talk a little bit about what you see and how innovation is happening at HP today and how it's promoted.
Well, innovation really needs to be at the heart of any company that wants to thrive. Whether you're a small company or a large company, you can't innovate or you just stagnate and you stay where you are. I was so impressed when I joined HP Labs because the office I got was actually directly across from Bill and Dave's original offices. So we would go in there and have chats, and it's so nostalgic, and you're like stepping into another era, and to realize the birthplace of Silicon Valley. I'm at the heart of something that has a lot of meaning. Mm-hmm. It's really an opportunity that I've enjoyed over the past decade, being part of a research organization within a large company too, because that's not something that's too common anymore. There are a lot of focus on R&D, but really on driving research and having that within the support of a huge organization, a large technology organization within HP. It's very unique. And one of the real values that I see in focusing on that is driving that kind of entrepreneurship, keeping that alive within the company. And it crosses over, everybody's like, well, why aren't, you researching at a startup, or why aren't you focusing on entrepreneurship? Mm-hmm. And the challenge to take that innovative spirit and do that within a large company, I see as a great challenge and something that we have all these resources that you don't have at your beck and call when you're in a small company like that. Working at HP, I have access to a customer base and a variety of businesses. You don't often realize how much we do and how many people we do it with. I feel like I've had the experience of 5 different careers, although I've been in HP Labs the whole time, because I've worked with the NBA, I've worked with DreamWorks, I've worked with GE, I've worked with government entities. I mean, you have all of these experiences, and when you're focusing on innovation and having that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, it's not just about having a bright idea. Having a bright idea is great, and you need that, but it's about understanding who is the user. What is their need? What is the business case for this? Is there a market for that? And then being able to gather the team that can actually execute and deliver on that. So it's not just about the idea, it's about taking it all the way through. And being in a company like HP, it's like I have access to this full network of angel investors from every different group who I can go to and get this advice within a day and get access to that. And not only that, but I have a team that I can pull from with experts in security, in cloud, and bring together to kind of get that advice to take those ideas to the next level. So I think the innovation is definitely alive and well at HP, and it's super exciting, especially when you come over to visit, just to walk through these offices and know the history that's there, but to also know what the future that's coming.
That's great, thank you. And I'm sure the audience and our guests would love to hear a little bit about maybe one of the projects that you've worked on in the past, and what that meant to you personally, kind of your pride.
I've worked on a variety of different projects. I think one of the, thinking about it as advice and as you're choosing, what you want to work on, you can't always handpick like the perfect idea thing that you want to do, but you want to grasp at whatever you can learn from that and apply it to something you're very interested in and passionate about. One of the first things I worked on was at a robotic telepresence, a surrogate robot. And, I had no experience in that whatever, but it really has served as the foundation for the work that I do now on collaborative cooperation, about bringing people together and connecting them. And I mean, I was in a bottom floor, on the bottom floor in this back room, in this dark room, hooking up cameras and trying to get microphones working well. And I was a software engineer with a liberal arts background, and I was just thrown into this, but I really enjoyed it and the work that I was doing with hardware engineers, with mechanical engineers, and then kind of talking about UIs and how to bring that to fruition. So then I applied that to work that we did around telepresence, around then looking at the consumer space and communicating through video. One of the trends that I think will emerge, and we had a video message tonight from Meg, is our comfort with video. As we all have mobile phones now, we're taking pictures of everything. People's comfort level with video is really increasing. And I believe that as a communication mechanism is somewhere where we're going to be moving to quickly, whether that be video conversation where it's live and synchronous or asynchronous video messaging. I definitely think that's something that I've worked on before that I'm very interested in, that I think is a trend. But when Anne mentioned social networking, and the power of social networking, people so often miss that because they think of it as a consumer play. It's about us connecting. It's about us, pinning different ideas we want to cook about, or connecting with each other and sharing photos of our kids on Facebook. I believe that social networking within the enterprise is really going to be a pivotal change that helps us not only do our work, but do it better, because we're better connected and we're better informed. And when that happens, we can make better decisions faster. And I think it will have a profound impact on the enterprise.
That's great. Thank you. That's
you.
amazing. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, our final panelist, and then I'm going to come out to you for your questions. So be thinking of the tough things that you would like to hear from our amazing panelists. So Elizabeth, we'll talk a little bit about security threats and challenges that face the industry in a second, and your background at Symantec and now the role you have in HP will be fascinating, I'm sure. You've been in the situation of integrating acquisitions as well as being acquired. Your company was recently acquired. Hot news in the press by HP. And I think sharing some insights from you on the experience of an acquisition on both sides and what it meant for you and your leadership through that would be fascinating.
So, yeah, I've done both sides. It's been interesting in seeing how acquisitions can be done well.
I'm not sure your mic's on.
Oh.
Do we have a... Orly? I'm not sure Elizabeth's mic's on. Turn it on. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Better.
Told you it was a soft speaker. I said it to the sound guy earlier. It just probably wasn't quite that soft.
Teasing you, yeah.
Really turned you up now.
So yeah, it's been interesting. I've been through several acquisitions on either side. I think the key thing for me is, so you do an acquisition for a reason, or you're acquired for a reason, and how do you preserve that value within that acquisition and within the team? And I think to some of the points that people made before, technology innovation is critical. That's why we go after things. But it's the people who do that, who have the creativity. So how do you ensure that those things that inspired that creativity, that allowed that innovation, whether it was a technology, whether it's a process, whether it's a service, whatever it is, how do you ensure that you keep that entrepreneurial drive and allow that to continue, and also keep the folks who did that and who drove that and who were, the thought leaders in doing that. So I've been through some ones in my past where that hasn't worked so well. And as a result, you end up losing some of the talent and skill, and you slow down some of the that creativity that you were looking to drive. I've also been on the other side where it's been very successful, I believe. And it's actually, I think, further enabled some of that creativity. And I have to say the recent experience has been one that has been very, very positive. So even in light of everything, the one thing that has been phenomenal about the HP experience has been the commitment to the people, to the technology, the sort of open arms and willingness to embrace. But in saying that too, the ability to also allow the things that made the technology successful, that had those folks who created IDLE as a platform. And I have to say, even when I met some of those folks originally, like really great talent. So how do you keep that? How do you keep that drive? So there was a very, I think, well thought out process about preserving that, enabling the team, but connecting them to the larger group, because whether it's from a security side or from an operational delivery side, I was like a kid in a candy store when we came to HP, because we already used a set of HP tools, but all of a sudden, like the doors opened, and it wasn't just Fortify or Tipping Point. We were looking at NNMI and a whole bunch of other things to make us better at what we do. And the other part of that, I think, that has been done really well, and I was saying it to April just a while ago, is for as excited as I was looking at the HP product services that are out there, when some of my team saw what they were doing at labs and that we could connect with those folks, that whole piece again of folks who are creative, innovative, being able to meet other people who are enabled so successfully to do that, and actually working very hard to make sure that we're connecting the right folks, and they meet like-minded people, and that we're creating communities. I think that has been really just a truly positive experience for everybody.
The themes that I'm hearing anyway around connecting and collaboration and communities and the diversity of all your backgrounds is a big one for me personally to take away. So every day I see a headline about security and threats and cyber attacks to businesses as well as to individuals. What do you think? I mean, this question everyone's probably trying to get the answer to, but what do you think us as technology companies and leaders, as well as people, should be thinking about when it comes to those security threats that we face today?
So there's a couple of things and different approaches you could take to it. So one is, and maybe this is more a historical view, security was always like, those security people, they're just going to shut everything down and they're going to stop you and make your life really difficult. And it's always the firewalls guy's fault. And I heard that a lot in my history. But the thing that's, I think, changed on one side is it's not about security as such, it's about risk management in a business. So part of what we have changed is it's not just the security team sitting there. They are a part of the business. They work with the business to understand and possibly expose where there's risks or issues, but it is a business decision about how you react to that. And the idea is you're enabling the business, you're helping protect it, you're adding value because for the services we deliver, whether it's in the cloud or whatever, you are securing customer data and you have to prove how serious you are about that and have the technology to do that. So I think that's one big shift that is happening, that whole approach in a risk space. The other side of it, I'm talking to all the attacks that have occurred. So years ago, it was all about script kiddies. So some little teenager sitting in a dark room, working away on a laptop. Didn't know any people like that, who used to do those things, and it was very individual, just taking it opportunistic. It then went to criminal groups who were doing it for profit, so whether it was going after credit card data or selling information or whatever. Now it's taken a whole other shift where we're looking at the possibility of obviously state-sponsored. So if you look at the expanse and the impact of not dealing with that kind of threat and not assessing that risk to your business. We're not just talking about, taking down a website or impacting a small part of your business. You were talking about the possible risk to massive portions of an infrastructure or going after espionage. So going after industrial espionage, looking at a state level, we're talking about, security within a country. So I think it has completely changed the attitude, and I'll say this, but I'm sure Anne could attest to this, within the boardroom, about how they approach and how you look at this. And I think that driver of looking at the risk, looking at what you're offering to your customers, and then doing the right thing by your customers and by your business, and in fact, by your employees and your staff, and protecting them as well.
Stopping the bad guys.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's your turn. I've had way too much. Fantastic. I already have a hand up over here.
She wins. She got it first.
Could we bring a mic over? Thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm a recent graduate, and 8 months ago, I just began my first job as a software engineer for a company in Cupertino called Sugar CRM. I know you already asked Anne this question before, but I wanted to get a lot of other opinions. What like a lot of us are very young in our careers. What is your advice for us? You know, and Anne, feel free to chime in with extra advice. What is your advice for us who are so young in our careers?
Tracy?
I kind of do this for
go
a
down the
living,
line.
so I can start. First of all, I'm definitely going to teach a class on negotiation. I can tell you how to negotiate. I always negotiate every offer, but you're going to use it against me for the HP people. So, but I'll give you a few tips. Yeah, but actually, you know, I think you heard from all of us. We all had an unbelievable array of opportunities. Take the opportunities that come to you. I wish, you know, I said this before, but I wish I had had more confidence just to go out. You know, I always had to be perfect at everything before I would try and go for a job. And it took me a while to realize, oh my God, people aren't smarter here than I am. I mean, I really, literally, it was sort of like an epiphany. And my husband was the one who pushed me more than anyone else to go to business school, to realize what I could do. You know, the other advice is pick a good partner. I mean, and everybody will tell you this. I mean, I bet every one of us has a good, you know, situation at home, because you really can't do it without support at home, I think. And however you do that, you know, don't be afraid, you know, and find mentors, sponsors, people who are interested in helping you, and go and talk to them. You know, I would never, at your age, and I know this generation's a lot different, have walked into a very senior person's office and said, you know, hey, I'd like to learn something. I don't think there's a person at HP who wouldn't say, oh, great, what do you want to know? You know, they take you under your wing. There's just so much there. I mean, you could go, people stop and talk to Meg in the cafeteria, and she's like super nice and open to them. I would never do that when I was that age. I certainly learned that over time. So find someone to sponsor you, because if I look back on my career, there are people who really helped me accelerate rapidly because they pushed me and they gave me opportunities and they gave me the vision that I could do it. So that's kind of my advice.
I just have one comment, and that's excellent advice. One of the things that I thought about early in my career, and actually as I've gone through my career, it's gotten more and more important, is you really need to know where you stand from an ethical perspective and your sort of your moral ground, right? It's interesting because you are faced with it every single day in a lot of different ways. And it's just really important to be truthful with yourself and recognize, look, this is the line I draw, and after that I can't do this anymore. I have to do something about it, or I have to stop doing it, or whatever, because for many, many reasons. One of which, though, includes that your reputation follows you. And so, you know, you may think that it's not known, but unfortunately, the way the Valley works and even the industry works, it ends up getting out there. So my advice is, you know, be careful with your reputation, be careful with your own ethical position, because you will, maybe not right now, but there will be a point in your career, and maybe quite often, that you've got to make a decision about where you stand.
Absolutely. That's great, thank you. April and Elizabeth, anything you'd like to add?
I think for advice at any stage in your career, whether you're early on in the middle or you're really advanced, is to look at paying it forward. I've always had folks in HP that I've admired the decisions that they have made. So those are the folks that I go talk to, and I step into their offices and I ask them advice, and they have turned into the advice givers that have helped kind of push me forward to not hesitate when I have the opportunities that I can take. But now I'm realizing there are other women that I see joining that I can give those opportunities to as well. So sharing advice, you know, whether it's something easy as we just started a group that walks around the block on Tuesday afternoons, just so we can chat about career paths and development, and just sharing these little things that I realized, oh, that would have been really nice to have. So look, you know, look forward and look for that advice that you can get, but also take the chance to look back in the advice that you can give, because even at this stage, you likely have very valuable advice to share.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I guess it's some of what everybody's already said. I think one of the most important things, to the point Bethany made, is a sense of integrity in what you do. You should always be true to yourself. So just as you need to listen to advice and take it in, you also have to be true to your own sense of yourself and what you do and doing the right thing. And I think the other thing relates to the not being afraid. And I remember describing it to somebody one time that every job I take, to some extent, I always have butterflies in my stomach about it. Because there should always be something that I personally am learning. or something that's different or challenging, because how can you be passionate about it if there isn't something to push you? If you've done it before and it's easy, then where's the passion in that?
Point. Anne.
I think there are two other things I'd add to all this great advice. And just think how good we could have been if we'd gotten all this advice.
Any of this advice?
So the two things I'd add to it would be that you can be mentored by someone just by watching them. And a lot of people will be nervous about signing up to officially be your mentor. But I had a couple executives inside HP that I learned a tremendous amount just by watching what they did and then doing it myself. And in some cases to this, where's your limit, watching what they did and swearing I'd never do it.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
they can give you the bad example as well.
That's important.
And it's really important. And the other thing I'd say is your boss really matters.
Yes.
Who you work for really matters. And, you know, I think that, you know, you want to be able to always be learning from your boss, because that's the person you're closest with and working the most with. So that person really matters. And when you work for a boss who has great leadership skills, they tend to get bigger assignments, and very often you can move up along with them. And take bigger things. And so, you know, I tell people they should be as choosy about who they work for as what company they work for.
I agree.
Now, the best thing is when you go to a company that's growing and expanding and has great opportunities for you, but the boss really matters.
Wonderful advice, thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay, any other questions in the room? Anyone? Yeah, another question over here.
Hi, my name is Angie Cheng. I'm the founder of BayAreaGGD Dinners. I had a question very similar, which was about mentorship and sponsorship. And I was wondering how exactly you find a sponsor, identify them, and then utilize them. And also, to follow up on that, there's so few women on boards. I'm wondering what you did to manage to get on the board of HP. So, thank you.
Do you want me to start? I'll start on the mentor sponsorship. You know, I know a lot of people, I meet people and they say, you know, I've never had to come to HR before. Like, that's a good thing. I don't consider that a good thing. It's good to go to HR. So you actually should let people know, you know, you're interested in things. There are a lot of companies that have networking and mentoring and sponsorship programs in place, and often you don't know about them. And so, you know, if there's a formal one, get engaged in that. Even if there isn't a formal one, you know, as Anne talked about, go find somebody you admire. Everybody said this, that you admire a lot, and actually talk to them about, you know, maybe we have lunch. You don't have to make it something big. Can I have lunch with you? And then, you know, get their advice periodically. There are ways you find, I've had a lot of different sponsors, both formal and informal, throughout my career. You know, sometimes it's your boss, sometimes it's other people. But you should be proactive in figuring out how to get those relationships. And it's not just one, it should be multiple ones across an organization, because you actually need a network now. And it can be outside as well. Outside sponsors are as powerful as internal ones often if you pick the right one. So that's kind of my advice on that one.
Yeah, I would say, so a sponsor can be different from a mentor. Okay, because a mentor can just give you advice and help you in situations where you're struggling, or, you know, a personal opinion for you. A sponsor is someone who actually advances your career. And they may not be your mentor. And these sponsors can be outside of the company because they have influence in the industry. So, you know, just be aware that sometimes there is a difference between a sponsor and a mentor. And oftentimes someone that you work for can be your sponsor. They may not necessarily be your mentor.
And they can, what happens just, you know, sort of in the thick of how people are decided for jobs is, you know, senior leadership or people above you are in a room and they're talking about there's an opportunity, just the way Dave, you know, said, oh, Bethany should fill this role. They had a conversation somewhere. And so people need to know about you and your interests, because that's how your name comes up. And so that's why finding somebody who is in that room having that conversation can be a sponsor for you from a career perspective.
The other comment
I feel like back on the point I was making in the earlier question, my best sponsors were bosses that I had. And part of the reason it worked was I helped them be successful.
Right, exactly.
And so, you know, a lot of this feeds on the results that you can help achieve, help your boss achieve, help your team achieve, help your business achieve, and then the opportunities that I think that creates. And so, you know, I really, really do believe that if you end up producing, then most bosses want to keep you on their team. And you know, help you expand your responsibilities.
And you had did you have another question? I didn't quite hear it.
Nope. Yeah, how you got on the board and how you get on the board as well.
Your board experience.
Yeah. Well, my first board experience was with UPS, the package delivery company. I joined that board 15 years ago. So I was young. I was 39. And they were looking for a board member. And they were a very progressive company, you know, thinking about women board members. They were looking for a board member who happened to match up exactly with my skill sets and experience. And so that's how I first got onto the board there. And it was a process where they were looking for a compatibility fit with the other board members because cohesive boards work better. And they were looking for a set of skills. And a headhunter gave them my name. With the HP board, you know, we had a situation where Hewlett-Packard was going through a lot of transition at about the same time that I was retiring from the day-to-day operations in the company. And so I think with HP, it was a transition that was great for me and also was good for the company, because we had a lot of new board members, and I was coming on as a board member who knew a lot about the industry, knew a lot about the company, and could help as we transitioned to a new CEO. You know, that CEO with some of the transitions as an insider. So I'm an insider board member. They're independent board members and insiders. I'm still one of the insiders because of my, you know, length of time out of HP's not long enough. And so, you know, I think for HP, it was, you know, partly based on the situation the company was going through. But as a company, HP has always had female board members. You know, right now we have Meg, we have myself, we have Pat Russo. And we've had a couple of other female board members on the past that have transitioned off for various reasons. And so, you know, I think HP's been very good at wanting and attracting, you know, female board members.
Thank you for the question. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And
There's like 5.
Yeah, do you guys have time for more questions? Yeah?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you because this lady was... Oh, no, I'm going to go to the lady with the mic.
Yeah.
And then we'll come to... Then these are the other 2 questions.
Hi, I have the mic.
Power.
It is not on.
There
it is on. So my question relates to setbacks. And how can you all speak to a time when maybe a job hasn't gone as you had hoped, or it hasn't slingshotted your career forward as you had hoped, and how you navigated that, and looking at doing something different versus doing something similar but maybe somewhere else?
I can take one.
I can do that.
So I worked for a person, and they will remain nameless, but I was very excited about a company that I wanted to be part of and the role that was being offered to me. And when I went to the company, very early on, I realized that this individual was not who I thought they were, and that the company wasn't where I wanted it to be. It was a good company, you know, very successful, but there were a lot of things about it that from the outside, you know, you can't tell until you're in the middle of it. And that was very hard for me because I had been fortunate before that to be in companies where first I did have wonderful bosses. I was very fortunate. I had managers who, you know, I had children, they understood all that, and this individual was not interested in any of that. And in fact, the comment that was made to me was, you know, with regard to any mentoring at all, was you're a self-watering plant. Get over it, right? And so I thought, you know what, hey, self-watering. Life is short, and this really isn't, you know, it isn't necessary to sort of torture yourself in an environment where it's just not conducive to your productivity and being a positive person. I hung in there actually for a while. I hung in for a few years, and then because I felt I had some things I wanted to accomplish, and also I really loved my team that worked for me, and I didn't want to abandon them. But ultimately, I left that company, and it was very sad because it should have been a wonderful experience, and it should have been something very different. And unfortunately, because of the circumstance, it just was not. So my advice is, sometimes there are times in your career where you just need to make a decision for yourself, and it's okay, because you ultimately you need to be responsible for your own productivity and happiness and your family. And that's a decision that you can make and should make. So
I had a very similar situation, and in fact, it was kind of a dream job. And there was a, and I had gone on a trip. I came back from this kind of worldwide trip that was really positive, and the CEO said. And there was a whole political thing that went on, so they wanted me to report to somebody else who I didn't have any respect for, back to this boss issue. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think you've mistaken me for somebody else because I'm not working for that person. And, it was, because they had it was a very interesting company. Anyway, and I ended up leaving in the same way, and it was probably the worst professional kind of thing that had ever happened to me. I felt, this is going to ruin my resume. It's a short-term thing. Right. This is a disaster. I mean, I moved for this job. I couldn't believe it. And you know what? It ended up, I catapulted to a much better job that was my ultimate fantastic job that led to this job. So you know what? You can get over it. You just have to pick yourself up and use your network, do the whole thing. And so it just seems devastating at the time. And it's just one of those things you learn from. And what I came out of that was I protected myself. It ended up being financially great. I made them pay me a lot of money. It was fabulous. So, I mean, you just have to make sure that you're always doing the right thing and advocating for yourself, because you can't be unhappy with the situation that you're in.
No. Thank you. Next question, second to last question, and then we'll close our panel.
Is it on?
Yeah. You will be.
Yeah. Great.
Now you are.
Hi. So, from your corporate seats, what's the best advice for scrappy startup entrepreneurs, non-technical founders who are female?
So I've been in scrappy startups. I've been in two. One was 21 people and a couple of dogs. And seriously, the dog. Oh, there you go. And so I was another one, 10 people. Yeah. So first, my advice is that if you're going to need help, and it may not necessarily mean you got to hire people, et cetera, but you can reach out to the community that you're in, the industry that you're in, to get advice and information to help you in the company that you have. It's interesting. I have a friend who's a salesperson, and she's like the most outgoing person ever. I'm somewhat of an introvert who has had to work really hard at not being introverted. And she's like, you just have to tell everybody. You have to tell everybody you have this problem because they have an answer for you. And I'm thinking, no way. But she was right. I mean, you should be out there asking, what do you think I should do about this? What about that? And people really will respond to that. I mean, they'll get a cup of coffee with you and talk with you about what you should do about certain situations. The other advice I would say that I have is be careful about who your investors are. You may be desperate to get them, but you will be as desperate to have them leave if they are the wrong ones. So just be very particular about that, and also be very particular about who you hire. Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm on my fourth CTO.
Okay, there you go. So, yeah.
And he's great.
Good, perfect. That is great.
Thank you for the question. Anything you would like to add, and the rest of the panel, to that? Nope?
No, I think she's already
Well, there's
covered.
also, when the team is small, it's really important that the people have respect for each other. So part of this hiring is the skill set. And I don't want to necessarily say like each other or get along, but you have to have a respect for the opinions and attitude of the team. And, you know, some people feel like they get that when they get people who are like themselves. You know, I tend to think it's got to be something where, you know, you've got that degree of respect. And that's often where the people part goes wrong with the really small teams.
Thank you. Okay, final question. Can we have a mic down the front here?
Oh, there's one back.
Oh, not final question, because panel would like, is everyone good to keep going with questions, or?
Okay, I'm going to take my jacket off here.
It's a little hot up here, yeah.
Okay, not that I mind. I'm having a hot flash. So there we go. Seriously.
The future.
Hi, my name is Carmen, and I'm a research scientist. And this question could maybe be for April, but it could be for anyone. I was wondering, because lately we've been hearing a lot, and even from my company, we've been hearing a lot about this push for designing for women. So I was wondering, what does that mean to you, other than, you know, skin it pink, right? We all know that it's not designing for women. So what does it really mean to design for women?
Great question.
That's a great question. When I think it's you know, when you think of women, you think you have a variety of opinions, and we're all going to view that differently, and likely all have very different answers. It is not necessarily designing something pink or looking at what the cover is, but the value in that it provides to women and to users. I'm really pleased to be part of a team where we are half and half, and we have this variety. You know, it's all about the team that you work with and complementing one another and picking team members that can bring in alternative viewpoints. When I would consider designing something for a woman, I think it reaches to a lot of the collaborative, the connecting. You know, it's not operating in a silo. It's not what's the benefit for you or for this one user, but what is the benefit for a multitude of users. You know, the saying about if you educate a woman, you educate the country, not just her family. I think reaching out and sharing and nurturing are things that are part of our nature. And designing for women, I would say, would be encompassing those aspects. But again, I think it's going to be something that's very opinionated and can go many different ways. But I definitely believe it has to go beyond skin deep. And the value that's there and how women ascertain that value is the viewpoint that you want to take.
Great.
Yeah, and you know, all the trends that I was talking about in our very first question, I think part of what you're seeing, and you'll see even more over the next 10 years, is people will stop talking about segments and start talking about selling to individuals or individual businesses and companies, and the segment kind of goes away. And everything gets tailored to you, or everything gets tailored to you as a business. And what your business needs. And it'll be those companies that can learn how to individually tailor to a company or to an individual that are going to really end up winning. And that's where all the big data comes in, and mobility comes in, this personalization, the cloud, you know, the social networking. All those things lead to segments getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And the average goes away. There's no such thing anymore as an average white woman in her 50s. They'd be selling to me. They wouldn't be selling to an average of me. They'd be selling to me. And so I think when you think about it, even if you think about selling to women, before it gets to the individual, to get to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller subsegments. And sophisticated companies like, you know, I'm familiar with some of the things Coca-Cola does, already has very, very, very small micro segments that they sell to when they're thinking about a population. You know, they're thinking about the people who are going to buy at a particular store in a particular geography. And so I think that's the way this is going.
Great, thank you. Okay, I know we would love to keep going with questions, but we also want to make sure that you have time to network with each other. So don't go anywhere. But I would like to say a huge thank you to our panelists for being here this evening and for sharing their advice.